You got it. You got it. Well, hi, everybody, and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to our Tiny Talks workshop. We're happy that you're here. As you might have heard me say earlier, well, first I want to talk about the recording. We are recording these to put into our member portal for those members that are still working or busy that can't watch. And also, we just want to say that the opinions given here are not necessarily the opinions of Noah or the team. So we got to put that out there. As I said before, if you have any questions at all, you're welcome to raise your hand and unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Or if you're shy and don't want to be on camera or what have you, you can always put it in the chat and I'm happy to ask the question for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, who am I turning it over to? Robin. I see DJ's not here. So Robin, you want to take over for me?
Oh, sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to have everyone on again tonight. It's been a real ride from October to here. And I wanted to also mention to everyone that we are putting together a 4 hours on Friday and 4 hours on Saturday in the middle of February grand finale. So certainly look for those emails, and we're already stacking up people to be our guests on that grand finale. Also, we do have talks going on. This is a Tuesday talk. Anybody can get on this talk, but we do have talks going on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So if you're interested in that, you could just email Leanne, Leanne, at noahcertified.org, and she will hook you up with that. So anyway, known Melanie for, I guess, quite a few years here. I don't even know how much, but we see her at the shows all the time. She was at the show this last weekend, and she was a speaker there. And so we got chatting, and she said, yeah, I could do Tuesday night. We'd love to get together and chat. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Melanie, and who you are and what you do and that kind of a thing. And then we can maybe do some questions and answers along the way here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so my name is Melanie. I started my tiny house on wheels journey about 5 years ago in February. We built our tiny house in 7 days, just like crazy. But we were illegal. We couldn't park in our state. We couldn't find parking in our state. And most of the campgrounds and RV parks at the time were an absolute no-go here. I think I called every one of them in the whole state. And after about a year, I found a campground that would let us in. So we lived there for about 8 months. And then I worked to legalize the parcel of land that I sit on in this county so that I could be considered an actual dwelling with my wheels on and taxed as such. And from there, I wrote our story and a guide to help other people. So I'm an author and my book is available on Amazon. And then I continued to just write ebooks and informational books to help people kind of what questions they need to think about, ways to talk to zoning, all different types of things like that. And I helped create the nonprofit Tiny House Alliance USA with Janet, who is our president, and Andrew, our vice president. And we are working with ASTM. We were the proponents of that initiative. Noah's also involved, so it's wonderful to be here with Noah because we're all working together on this to help create global standards for tiny houses on wheels and make that more available for everybody. So that's about it.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions here before we get too far along. Melanie, can you
Sure.
Can you tell us, did you actually build your house in 7 days?
Yes.
Serious?
It's
you
videoed.
had the trail. You had the trailer. You started with a trailer.
So we did a workshop at Incredible Tiny Homes, and what they did was we worked with the designer in advance, and got all of our materials and the layout and everything that we needed. That's what we paid for. It was $27,000 for all of our materials for this house. And we were given a supervisor, a plumber, an electrician. And when we showed up, they had the trailer, because they purchased it with our money. And they had put up the basic frame and the roof. And I think they had some of the spray foam in the ceiling done. And then they had the sheathing on, the OSB and the sheathing. And everything else, the 5 of us built in 7 days. So we did the hardwood floors, we did all the tongue and groove, we did, cut out all the notches to put in all the lights, the outside, yeah.
Were you working in a shop with lights, and could you work late at night, or how did that play out?
Yeah, it was a warehouse. It's not where Incredible Tiny Homes is now. They used to have a different location, and it was a warehouse. They did have lights, but it did leak and there was water all over the place. And they had a bunk room there. So we all stayed in the bunk room, and they had like one for men and one for women. But because it was just kind of a family type group, we all just stayed in the same bunk room, which was kind of like, camping out with your friends. Some nights we worked until 1 or 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very long, basically we would talk to our supervisor. And we're like, look, what do we have to get finished today so that we're on track to get out of here in 7 days? Because we knew that there are people that had done this workshop that were not able to finish. And that was not an option for us, because our house was gone, our stuff was gone, and this had to come back with us because there was no home to go back to. So every night we would check in, and he would leave at like 5 because he was a worker and go home to his family. And so he would tell us, you need to, finish this wall, or make sure that your hardwood floor is complete tonight, or make sure that you get all your trim cut, and give us what we needed. And we wouldn't stop working until that was done.
And sometimes
So,
that was 1 o'clock in the morning.
Sometimes that was 1 o'clock in
and
the
then
morning.
you got up the next morning to do it all over again. The funny thing is, guys, we can do anything for a little while. For 7 days, we can lose sleep. If there's a big enough carrot, big enough goal at the end of the day, you can pretty much do anything for a short period of time. If it was a lifestyle, that would be probably an issue. And the other thing I wanted to bring out is she started out with a shell. So in other words, the basic outside inside was already determined. Apparently you had all the materials there on site. So you didn't have to go run into Home Depot for this or that, or Lowe's or wherever you get your stuff from. So there's some lessons to be learned here. And I can tell you, I can see that happening. I can see somebody completing their DIY in 7 days and having a quality job at the end of it. You're not like cutting corners or rushing through things. You're actually finishing everything. So that's a good lesson right there. And so I want to say that me and 3 Mexicans, so 4 of us built a 32 by 24 or 33 by 24 home from ground up in 7 days. And it was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's a rental that we have, and people are still living in it. So it's stayed together. Okay. So it can be done with a small crew and a determination.
And I will add to that though, Robin, it does take teamwork. It does take patience and grace when you're tired. And it does take the idea that even if everything isn't perfect, you kind of learn to let some things go. I look at like boards that don't line up exactly, that have like just that little bit of gap in the tongue and groove. And I'm like, why would I have left that gap? Because I built in 7 days, right? And it can still be quality, but you can look at those things afterwards and go, that's because I did it. That's because we did this. And but yeah, it definitely takes teamwork if you're fighting or frustrated out of, exhaustion, stuff doesn't get done. And so if you're going into a fast build like that, offer yourself some grace for the little things. Because they're going to
How big is your house? How big is your house?
It's 8 by 18.
So it's not a real big house. 18 foot is not huge, guys. That's
Right.
That's on the smaller end of, we're building a 14 footer, which is really a small house. We built an 18 footer, was the first one that we've done. And we don't, here at NOAA, we don't build houses. I just have done some in my own personal life, helping out some builders that couldn't complete theirs and things like that. But,
Right.
Okay, your book, what's the name of your book?
It's Trailblazing Tiny, A Guide to Breaking Free.
Can somebody type that in the chat? And I understand it's available on Amazon Prime for $9, Prime for free, and $9 if you don't have it, $9.99.
No, it's $24.99. It's only available in paperback. It's not, I believe it is on Prime, but I don't think that that's discounted. My ebook series is Trailblazing Tiny Tales. That is available for 99 cents, and it's free with Kindle Unlimited.
All right, there you go. Can you can you put that in the chat there, Leanne, or somebody, DJ? Was it Trailblazing what?
Trailblazing Tiny Tales.
Trailblazing Tiny Tales.
There's 11 of those ebooks. They're short reads, 30 to 45 minutes, deep dives on one topic. So they're much shorter and just focused on one thing, like just focused on zoning or designing a space, or Hard Knocks, which is like, I think that's almost 30 other tiny house dwellers sharing problems that they had in different facets of living tiny to help people plan to, have a better experience or things to think about. So all just kind of one topic, condense things. And then those books are being combined to a compilation paperback book, which I'm publishing this month.
And what's it?
So
Are you going to give us a name of that, or do you have a name yet?
It's going to be Trailblazing Tiny Tales compilation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to look out for that, and how you said they can go to Amazon to get your book, and you can tell us maybe at the end of the time, or we can just do it right now. But I want to let everybody know that that's certainly a something that's out there that you can tap into.
Yeah.
Tiny House Alliance.
Yeah.
You want to chat a little bit about Tiny House Alliance USA, guys, not just Tiny House Alliance. Tiny House Alliance USA. Is it .com or .org or?
It's .org.
.org.
Yeah.
tinyhousealliance.org.
Yeah.
And just tell us a little bit about that, and what your allegiance to there would be. It's .org, right, DJ. So, Tiny House Alliance USA, I think. .org.
Nope, I lost you, Robin.
Oh no, DJ was putting it in the chat. I think it's tinyhouseallianceusa.org. That's correct. All right. You're muted, Melanie. Can you unmute? There we go.
Am I muted now?
No, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I didn't touch anything. I don't know what happened. So we created our nonprofit about 2 years ago, and we had 3 really big things that we wanted to do. The first one was the ASTM initiative to create global standards in less than 2 years, with a massive amount of global help. We have made that happen, and we have a subcommittee with ASTM. Our second goal was to help create education programs in schools for young adults to be able to receive life skills, woodworking skills, learning how to build, that type of stuff. So we have a couple schools that we work with where we use our funds to help provide tools and equipment for them so that they can complete tiny house building projects. And our third kind of initiative with the nonprofit is to look for land that tiny houses can be built on and help develop legal parking in areas with that. And so we have partnered with land. Well, we've worked with Land is Home. They're not a partner. To, and cottages. What is it? Cottages at, I can't remember the name. Anyway, we have a couple of people that we're working with like that to help find land and, developments and connect people together so that things like this can be more widely available in many different areas. And there's a lot of land in this country that can be used and utilized for tiny living, but usually you don't have the developers and all of the people to help get it going. And so that was one of the kind of the things that we were working on. And that one's kind of been set to the back burner because as a 3-person tiny house alliance, the ASTM initiative was a massive undertaking. And so we're hoping to work on some of the other projects now a little bit more.
How do you get funded as a nonprofit? Do you get donations? Do you sell stuff? Obviously things cost money, and especially land. Right.
Yeah,
how do you do all of that?
So
have you done any grants too?
Any what?
Sorry, have you done any grants as well? Grants.
I believe so Janet has handled most of the financial stuff for grants and things like that. But I know that we do offer memberships, and we have commercial members and we have consumer members. And so there's different tiers of membership that offer different things for each person. So if businesses join us and donate like $500, commercial members, they get blogs and announcements and, things written about them, and it helps push them out to consumers.
Nope,
so we have a whole tier of all different types of things that we offer like that. And we do not sell anything. We do not sell any products. So we are fully funded by the tiny house community and the members.
So if someone wanted to buy a membership to the Tiny House Alliance USA, what would they do?
So you would go to tinyhousealliance.org, and there's a spot that says join. I think it says join the momentum, and you can click on that and it will show you all of the different tiers of membership, and it will have all of the information that what you get for that membership, and each membership offers something different.
Cool.
Yeah.
Going back to your build, where do you live now? Where did you finally, I know you moved 8 months or something, you moved around a little bit, but you finally found a place. Tell us a little bit about that journey. You went from your build in 7 days. Where did you go to after that? It had to go somewhere. And then how did that journey end up where you are today?
Yeah. So initially, when we built in Tennessee, and the house was coming back to Virginia. And we had already done all the research in Virginia, so we knew that we were not going to be allowed in at that point in time. So we moved in a friend's backyard in a county that was not friendly to tiny houses. And we were not even really hidden, like you could see us from the road. So it was pretty gutsy. But the house wasn't like painted and stained and everything. So we were doing all the caulking on the outside and the finish work. So we figured if anybody asked us, we would just be like, yeah, we're still building it. But once the house was done and the painting and the staining and everything when all that was finished, we were like, okay, well, now we can't say that anymore. Like, obviously we're living in it. And while we were trying to finish off all of the prettying up the tiny, I was making phone calls every single night to any campground I could find or anywhere that I could go, because basically every day I would come home and wait for the sticker on my door saying, you're going to have to leave and we're going to fine you and get out. So we were in our friend's backyard for almost a year, a little over a year. And we eventually found a campground that would let us in. And so we moved there, and it was sad. It really was a sad situation because we loved our host and we're still great friends. And we were able to help her with her house and her gardens and do work on the property. And she was able to like watch my dog if I needed to travel. And we just had this great camaraderie and we all got along. And it was very hard when I had to tell her I have to go, but I didn't really want to be illegal. I just wasn't given any more choices. And so when we found the legal campground option, we took it. And the first couple months we were at the campground, it was fine. But I think about 3 or 4 months in, we started hearing news that the campground was going to be sold. And it was a family campground, and they were looking at selling to a corporate entity. And I knew the name of the corporation because they owned other campgrounds in Virginia. And I'd already called those campgrounds and they didn't let tiny houses in. So I was like, if they buy this, I'm out. Like, they're not going to let me stay here anymore. So that was when I started working really hard and calling every zoning official, building inspector, anybody that would pick up the phone to like, where can I go? Because I knew it was coming. And I was able to get a hold of my county and work through them and figure out what parcel of land I could buy and what I had to do permit wise and everything else to get here. And we did it, and we did it rapidly. We did, I think we started looking for land in July and August, really heavy. By October, we had put a contract on the land, and by November we were here. So, and in December, they sold the campground. Most of the employees there were laid off, and it does not welcome tiny houses on wheels.
So what did you buy? How big of a property did you end up with?
We got a little over an acre. It's 1.07 acres. It came with, though, because there was a burnt down house here, so it was considered distressed property. But because that burnt down house was here, we had the well, the electric, the septic, the driveway, and one whole side of my property is a stream, and I own both sides of the stream. So just the infrastructure in that alone, we tore down the old house. That cost us like $2,000 or something to have it torn down and out of here. And the property cost us $16,000.
Wow.
So when you figure I've got a tiny house that cost me 27, I've got land that cost me 16. We've done all the work on our property. We've built all of our fences and our outbuildings and our workshops. And that's all been our labor, fixing it all up, other than the tear down of the house, because I'm not going to deal with that. I hired somebody. We're sitting in a place where we can actually retire. And 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been an option for us. So it's been a pretty amazing journey. And I'm not saying it was easy. I will never say that it was easy. But thank God I fought for it, because I have a chance to have that time with my husband now. And I have a chance to retire and travel. And I will not work until I die. I will not. I will not.
I love your vision.
What did everyone around you say when all this was happening? People must have thought you were crazy, thought you were absolutely brilliant. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, when we first started doing it, it was, we were not engaged in any way with the tiny house community. Like I don't even think I'd ever heard of a Facebook group. So I didn't really have anybody. I watched a YouTube video with this little lady, and I've never found her again. Her name was Jenny Strange, and she lived in this little camper with her dreads, and she had chickens and all this stuff. And I was like, that's just so perfect. And so she was kind of like my role model. I'm like, I just want to have, my land and my chickens and be simple. Yep. And I would tell my friends about like, hey, this lady's got this camper and she's doing this thing. And they're like, you have 2 college degrees and you're working a corporate job. What are you talking about? Like, and I was working with a real estate agent. And so I was trying to, talk to some of the other agents. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of in the market for a tiny house. And the other agent I worked with, he would send me listings and he was like, look, I found a tiny house. It's this one. It's 900 square feet. And I'm like, that's not a tiny house. Like, it's not. Well, there was not a lot of understanding. I had a lot of people that thought it was cool, but I had personal friends that were like, if you do this and your marriage survives the 1 year, you're going to be lucky. And I'm thinking, like, there were a lot of people that made some really hurtful comments, because I'm thinking the whole point of this is that I have more time with my husband and the financial stress to be gone. And so there were a lot of worries from people, and you're going to lose it all. You're never going to make it. And I was like, well, we're going to do it. So, like, get on board, I guess. Because, and then throughout the process of legalizing and stuff, I did end up I found my tribe. I found my people, and I found this amazing group of people with incredible tiny homes, and they have their own little Facebook group, and, everybody was kind of watching and sharing. And I was like, okay, I'm not as like alone as I thought I was. 'Cause 5 years ago, it wasn't like it is now. We didn't have this many groups. We didn't have this many people doing it. And so, or at least I didn't even know that existed to have it. So it definitely helped a lot when I got in with people with similar thoughts. And unfortunately, a lot of those friendships of the people that were not so nice about it don't exist anymore.
Oh, cool. Now,
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Melanie. You're in Virginia, obviously,
Yep.
and I don't know what county you're in, but how did you manage? What did the building code officials say? Obviously, that's a thing on wheels, and we always get well, that's an RV, that's not a house. What did he do that made you legal in that particular spot where you were? How did you make that happen?
So I love my building inspector. He's a fantastic gentleman, very knowledgeable. He washed his hands of me. Yeah. There was nothing for him to use to legalize me. And this is the thing, because the home is already built. And so when you start talking to building inspectors permit new structures. Mine isn't a new structure. It was done. So he was like, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing that I can come out and inspect. You're closed in, you're living in it full time. So he was like, this is not going to be something that's in my
purview.
Yeah, it wasn't what he could do. So I was working with the zoning administrator, and we were talking about all the different options, and I told her what I had, and I told her what I was trying to do, and I we talked about why I need the wheels on. And she's like, well, the code for mobile homes states that mobile homes can have their wheels on. And the only reason that they don't is because the mobile home companies take them off and use them for the next transport. But if the people want wheels on their mobile homes, they can have them. So she's like, I don't see what the problem is with that. So she was a fantastic, and this is a very rural area with a lot of lack of regulation, which they work very hard to keep lack of regulation for exactly this reason. And so by working with her and the health department to make sure that my systems were safe and proper and not going to damage the land, and the county attorney, I was able to come into this as I guess they call it a grandfathered in type of dwelling with the wheels on. And while I don't intend to move, I did make it very clear that if there was a fire or a reason that I needed to protect my home, she's going to roll out of here in a heartbeat. Um, and, but I own this property and it's where my hookups are. So I'll come back. And some of the ways that I did that was with using fire, for example, because we did have a big fire and a bunch of buildings were burnt down. And I said, well, my house will roll away during the fire. And then when all my neighbors' houses burn down, I'll bring my house back and I'll still pay you taxes. And they let me
So
back.
are you, very
So
good, very good.
It was a process of working with all of the different departments. And that's the thing. I think we focus on building departments a lot, but I think that there's a lack of understanding that zoning and county officials and attorneys have a massive amount of say in what happens in their areas. And they're very much overlooked in this movement for being advocates for tiny house dwellers.
Cool. Well, just to help everybody understand, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One thing that she did right was to go in and talk to the officials and up front, and didn't wait for a neighbor to complain and say, what's this person doing living here? You know, and that kind of a thing. So she started out with the right side of things. This is what I've got. This is what I want to do. I would hope that you, before you actually closed on the property, you might have had a deposit down on it or something. You went and talked to them to make sure that, you know, you could do what you wanted to do. If you're as gutsy as it sounds like you are, you probably bought the property, put the house on it and said, okay. No, you went the other way.
I actually, before I closed, I think it was the day before I closed, I went to the zoning office, and I think I will say I demanded at this point, because I was, you know, like getting ready to close. I wanted in writing. I wanted in writing that I'm going to be allowed to live here, and that in a year, you're not going to come back and kick me off this land. And I got a letter. So
there you go.
I did make sure, you know, that I covered my own ass, because I wasn't trying to break the laws at this point. But if I'm going to invest in your county and buy a property and clean it up and contribute my taxes and everything to this community, I don't want you coming back at me a year from now and, you know, jumping down my throat about it. So I would say anybody who's buying land, because county officials change, and I've seen this happen too. I've seen them approve things and then somebody leaves and the next person says no. So whatever you do, whoever you're working with, get that in writing, because if in 5 years there's somebody different there and they want to try to come back, I'm like, no, we're good. You know, you got to cover yourself in the way we sit right now. Be so careful with that stuff and make sure that anything in writing you've got, you can, whatever you can get it.
Good deal. So it was really
I was a little gutsier with that, Robin.
But no, that's cool. I think you did great. I think you did fantastic. So you got a letter from the zoning department. Are you paying taxes on the tiny house? Is it considered part of the real estate? Is that how they did that? Okay. All right.
Yep. So when I received my tax bill, it actually states tiny home. It doesn't say anything about wheels. Taxed by my square footage of the home and the addition of the porch, the deck that we built. And then I'm taxed for the property as real estate. Yep.
Okay. All right. And just so you know, what she's dealing, when we're dealing with these things, it's the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction. You really, the building official, the zoning official, those are all considered AHJ, authorities having jurisdictions. And they do have the authority to do what's called a special exception, which is what happened in this case. They can make a special exception. They did that with a gal up in Durham, North Carolina. We were working with, made a special exception for her to live legally in her tiny house full time.
Yes.
So if the ordinances haven't been written in your area or your county or your state, you can do a one-off, so to speak. And I guess this wasn't your first phone call. You had to make more inquiries before you finally found somebody that was a possibility, I guess.
Hundreds of phone calls, hundreds. And I think and the thing was so I'm, it was too late. I have a house, I have a home. And so I'm in it to win it at this point. So when I would call these people and they would tell me no, I was like that little 2-year-old that's obnoxious, that just keeps going, but why? But why? But why? Because I know there's a reason they're telling me no, but maybe there's a way around it, right? But I have to understand their thinking to understand why I'm getting the response that I'm getting. And so every time I got a no, I just kept asking questions to try to figure out what the source of that was for that county, and was it something that I could overcome? And in the process of speaking to all these officials and learning, the things that I learned were, in this specific county, new construction couldn't be done on anything that was less than 2 acres because the soil for our drain fields fail. And that was causing a lot of people to abandon homes in our area because the alternative septic systems are so expensive. And this is a poor county. People don't have the money to replace that. So they've changed some rules in how they allow building. So these smaller properties, like that had a house on it that burnt down, nobody wanted to grab this up because even if they cleaned it up, they weren't going to allow new construction on it. But my home's constructed and I can hook into these systems, and this drain field will never fail because I only run gray water and I have a composting toilet, which is allowed by our state law. And so by using the land that they couldn't use or develop, I took something that was 10 years in arrears in taxes, cleaned it up, doubled the value of the land, doubled the value of my home, and now pay them. They have a property that's making money. And that's important to understand is, when we're at this stage of the movement, I'm not a huge fan of taxes. Like, nobody likes to pay taxes, but tell them you want to pay them taxes, because the more we show that we can make them money in this position, the more influential that becomes for them wanting to bring us in for areas that they can't build on. And so you have to find your advantage. You have to find out what they can't do and what they will do. And that's a lot of it.
So basically what you ended up with 144 square foot home,
right?
On a lot for a total of $45,000. You have a composting toilet, so you really don't need a lot in the way of septic system. You have a well. I guess your well is functioning and everything's working fine with that. Was there a power pole already there, or did you have to get a power pole put in?
There was a power pole. We had to pay to have our rack built, and that had to be inspected. Our septic had to be inspected and permitted. And we plug into the rack. So we've got that. I think we just had to pay for them to trench, and we had to build the rack. But we didn't have to bring the power across the street, which I guess is much more expensive.
Oh, yeah. Good deal. Well, that's a great story, that how you came about that. Could we kind of shift gears just a little bit, Melanie, and tell us a little bit about the ASTM initiative and what's going on in that E26.606? Something like that.
E06.26. So ASTM is the standard. It's a standards company, right? The American Society for Testing and Materials. E06 is our main committee, which is performance of buildings. And .26 is our subcommittee, which is for tiny houses. Inside of the tiny house subcommittee, and we just had our first meeting January this month. So we had our orientation into ASTM and all of the, how this process works and voting information and all that kind of stuff. But basically what we will be doing is dividing into task groups, creating task groups, one for like tiny houses on wheels. Robin, I believe that you're going to be in the one for certifications. And then there's some for like microgrid communities, whatever we want to bring forward. And we will begin the process with all of these people around the world, from engineers to designers to builders to consumers, to create a standard that then can be pushed out and used to create laws and regulations in areas that don't have them for tiny houses on wheels. And the importance of this is that not only do we get a say for ourselves as an industry, and we get to decide, what is good for our industry, we get to work on things like making sure that the certifications and designs for these still remain creative and affordable. And we don't have to just sit here and wait for cities and states to start regulating the heck out of us, because we know what happens when they start regulating other things. So this is a chance for us to be like, look, this is how we want to be regulated, and we're giving you the framework for it. And I believe that the adoption of this by cities and counties will end up being large, because most cities and counties don't have the time, the money, the manpower, or the knowledge to create ordinances. It's not there. They're swamped. They've got so many things on a zoning official's desk that they have to deal with. The last thing they care about is your stupid little tiny house that they have to figure out how to park, and then they have to come up with all these things and try to write rules and regulations. And they also, if they do that, can become liable if those things don't work well. So if they tell you you need to tie down a certain way and your house blows over, they're going to be like, hey, so there is some liability on a city's part if they create something that doesn't work right. And so by having somebody else give them something, it takes that off of their plate too, and makes them more open to accept these things in their areas. And I think between that and the housing crisis right now, which is extremely unfortunate, but I think it's going to massively help this open up in a lot of areas for people.
Absolutely. And can other people get involved with this, or who, how do you go about?
Everybody is welcome. And that's the best part. And I know, because I work mainly as a consumer advocate, but the thing is, most consumers that I talk to are people who want to buy a house, are like, yeah, I'd be on it, but I don't know anything about it. You don't have to. You don't have to know. You know that you want a tiny house. You know that you want it affordable. You want to be able to do like a custom design. You want it to maybe not burn down, maybe be able to tow down the road right, like not have electrical wires hanging out of your ceiling. So coming in and voting, the voting part, just becoming a member and being immersed and surrounded by all of these amazing people, you will expand, your knowledge to be able to take this to your city or county when you're done and be like, hey, look at what we did. Let's do something. Let's roll. And so I think consumers, to me, don't realize how much power they hold. And I think they hold a lot more than they know they do. But I think it's a very scary thing to go and talk to a zoning official or a building inspector, because I never talked to one of these people before. Like, I'm just going to cruise on down to my zoning office and have a chat with my minister. Like, nobody does that. Nobody goes to do that. So it's like, Wednesday, I'm going to call my building inspector and talk to him about Appendix Q. I mean, no, we don't do. So it is intimidating, because we do view them as officials. We view them as higher than us, right? Like, they have a power, they have an authority. But I think what we don't understand is that they work for us. That's why they're there. They're there because they work for us. And so when you start showing up and you start talking, and you're honest and you're respectful, and you have, questions, it's their job to answer those for you and help you get through the information that you don't understand. And so I think that this is a way that consumers can really step in and gain a lot of information to help their cities and counties.
A real
And you really
challenge,
don't have to, oh, go ahead, DJ.
I think a real challenge too is knowing how to use that information. Because I listen to you speak and I say, well, that really made sense. Would I have thought of that early on? And I don't think I would have. So these
Right.
sessions and the people you reach, that's so helpful.
Right. And it's, I mean, you know, my background is, I have a degree in English and I have a degree in business, but what I did for several years was financial legal editing. So I was sitting there reading code books, legal and financial editing, and doing all of this type of work. And so as I'm kind of familiar with some of this, and then I left the corporate world and I worked in real estate for a while. So I got to learn about land sales. And I feel like everything about my process from going tiny to like all of the crappy jobs and the bad bosses and the long hours and the shit work and the abuse and the frustration and the financially not making it, all of that gave me the information that I needed to somehow get to where I am now. And I think about that a lot. I think about what path led me to get to where I am. And that was not a path that I picked. It was just what happened in my life. But I believe, and you'll talk to many other tiny dwellers, things along the way happen to somehow make it happen for every person, whether they want to be, whether they're in a community or they're parked in somebody's backyard. There were things along that process that got them there somehow. And, you know, you just never know. You never know who you're going to meet and speak to. And the more you talk and the more you share, the more you get surrounded by people that will help you and give you advice, really good advice along the way. And I just never stopped listening, and I never stopped asking why. So if you don't know these things, because I didn't know all of these things, listen, take notes, and always ask them why. And never take no for an answer. A no means why. Every time. Until they just want to like poke your eyes out. But
So right now we have something like 90 people or maybe 100 by now that are on the committee. There's a couple of different things. You can be I think it's a user. There's some different producer or user or something like that. But you don't have to be anything. You can be an app, just the absolute, and that's what is really needed on the committee, from what I understand right now, is that kind of thing. So no matter what you are, how much is the cost? There's a little cost involved with that. Do you know what the numbers are?
Yeah, it's $75 to join as a member. I think they have something free for students. So if you're registered and going to school, then I think you could join for free. With that membership, you get the newsletters. You get a whole packet of information about the Performance of Buildings Committee and all of the standards that have been created by this committee. So you'll get to see the history and be able to kind of immerse yourself in that knowledge and see how things are written and created. And all of that is very useful information, because this is the type of stuff that creates regulation. So having an understanding of how regulation works and how codes and laws and things are brought about, and getting firsthand knowledge of that before it happens, you really get a chance to see how everything kind of like comes together. So it's very cool. It's a very cool process. It is for someone like me who just asks why for everything. So I'm like, yeah, let's see. I want to, you never know, it's all this cool stuff.
Well, that's great. And one of the things that I found out dealing with the Colorado committee, and they're trying to bring tiny houses in. Your voice counts. There was an issue that came up where in a tiny house, there's certain clearances required for the toilet and the lavy, or what they call the lavy. It's really the sink, the bathroom sink. And some people, I don't know whether you, but some people have a shower and a toilet, and they don't have a sink. And so the suggestion was, okay, well, a lot of people don't have a sink, but they go outside their bathroom door, and right there's their kitchen sink. Can't they just wash their hands? Is that the way yours is?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so there was pushback. There was pushback against that from especially the plumbing code official. He says, no, you can't do that. You can't wash your hands in the kitchen sink. That's a food preparation area. And so because there were some other people that brought up the fact that they had, some of the builders said, no, I don't build anything without a bathroom sink in it. And some people said, no, there are builders out there that do it. So when I guess it was a PowerPoint that came down last 2 weeks ago, they had in there that, you do have to have a bathroom sink. That is in the code. You have to have it, but you can use the kitchen sink for your bathroom sink. So yeah, your voice does matter in these things, and you may not know a whole lot about codes and standards, but you know what you want and what you can live with and what you can't live with. Things like your composting toilet, that's a lot of, some places don't care that you have a composting toilet. They won't let you use a composting toilet, but some states will. And that's really up to the state health department, I think, that regulates that. But if you don't have a septic system, then you can have a gray water filter system that would, suffice in that respect. So,
and see, like I have a water system that will actually like clean and recycle the water so that when it goes on the ground, it's not sewage, but not approved.
Yeah.
So, but a composting toilet could be approved, but I still have to be hooked to septic for my gray water because that's still sewage. So every area is going to give you like all of these different things, and you have to compromise. You can't go in there gung-ho like, I want it all, I want this and this and this. It's like, well, I'm doing this, I have this, how can we work this in? Would you allow this? How could that, and work with them on it, because I think a lot of areas are more flexible than people think, and your voice does matter. They are listening to you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And when I talked to the health department here, they said, we do allow composting toilets, but because you have a kitchen sink, that's considered gray water because of the food particles that you put down in there. So you still have to have your septic hookup. So, well, guys, if there's any questions, we're getting close to the end of our time. Put them in the chat. Leanne, do we have any questions that we want to throw out here before we run completely out of time?
No, I do have a person that was asking about Idaho, and I know that we had that asked last one of the other Zoom meetings. I'm going to email Jeffrey. I'm going to email your son some information. He's a member, and I have his email, so I'll see what I can find for you guys. And maybe Robin can give me some input on that as well. So if there's any...
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And when one of the speakers, I think it's the owner, talked about lionsusa.org, what was that full website? Because I did type it in for what he has said, and it came up. Safari couldn't find it.
It's Tiny House Alliance USA.
Oh, Tiny House Alliance?
USA.org.
Oh, not Lions. Okay.
No,
Alliance.
Oh, Alliance. Well, that makes that explains it. Okay, my video. Let me turn my video on because you can't see me. And oh my goodness, I'm still navigating all this. I'm actually working on what I call my tiny house. It's my RV.
Nice.
So I'm in North Idaho, and I'm working on the water system. So you caught me in the middle of maintenance, but I didn't want to miss the meeting. So anyway, some of my cold weather gear. But what city and state, the host, what city and state did you have these struggles and finally overcome in?
In Idaho?
So I'm not in a city. I'm in Virginia. It's Buckingham County. It's very rural. I do not consider this a tiny friendly area at all. But based on parcel or individual lots, if you're willing to purchase, I do see that there's potential to get in, but it is still going to be a struggle. And when I came in, they were operating off the 2015 building code. Now they operate off of the 2018 building code. So some things have changed since I was allowed in.
Okay.
And like I said, it's not a tiny friendly state, but it's the closest that this county and Floyd, Virginia, I think are the only two counties that really have some ways to work this in that I've seen so far.
Right. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said housing shortage has now become a housing shortage crisis. And this
Yep.
tiny house phenomenon is just a no-brainer, but it's getting through all of the political hoops. And I think that's what Jordan
Yep.
Miller's specialty is, right? Did I speak for you rightly, Jordan?
You're talking, you mean Robin? Jordan
Yeah, I
is,
think-
Oh,
but yeah,
Robin.
no,
Okay, I was looking at the different names up there. I didn't know who was who. So
yeah. Yeah, no,
So the-
we are, one of our functions is advocacy for getting tiny houses approved, and Blaine County, Idaho was one of them that we did get approved, and Leanne will send you that information. We'll actually give you a copy of the ordinance that they wrote, so that if you want to take it to your county commissioners, if you can bring them something already written where they just have to change the name, the county, then it makes their job a whole lot easier, and you'll have a whole lot better chance to get something approved.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey,
And
Melanie,
I'm
I have-
loving seeing those ordinances and stuff come out, because they may not work everywhere, but they can be manipulated and used in other areas. And so it becomes a great tool.
I have one last quick question here. If you had to
Okay.
say, I mean, obviously people just getting involved is pretty critical.
Yes.
And yeah, there is a housing shortage. I honestly believe there's been one for years. When we have our veterans sitting
too.
on the streets, but we're giving money overseas, I have a problem with that. We have homes,
Yeah.
but we're just not
Right.
filling them for whatever reason. It's all political. What are the top, say, 3 most important bullet things people can do to get involved if they don't know anything?
If they don't know anything, well, I think
Don't know
everybody
anything.
knows something.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost is get yourself into a tiny house group and get yourself connected to people who are living this lifestyle already. Because the people that aren't living this lifestyle already are going to be all the people that are going to tell you how horrible it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Find your people, find your tribe, and really start talking and making friends in this community, because there are amazing tiny house dwellers out there. Second, advocate. Find out who your representatives are in your area. Find out who your zoning, your city council, your mayors, whoever has a say in affordable housing in your area. And if they're doing a good job and they're working for affordable houses and tiny houses, share them out. Support them. Show
Right.
up for them. And if they are not, vote them out. Because that is
excellent.
where
Yeah.
it starts at a local level. And we have so much power to change land laws and zoning laws at a local level, and we don't even realize how much we can do that. And third, join ASTM and come hang out with me.
All right.
Thank you.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you, Melanie. Melanie, thank you so much. Leanne, you want to go ahead and kind of give us some final thoughts and bring us out?
Yes, sir. You got it. Well, first, I would just want to say thank you so much to Melanie for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know you had a long drive Sunday, and we're just happy to have you here. And just
Thank you.
congratulations on your gumption, your persistence. I kept picturing I love pit bulls, but kept picturing a pit bull down by the official's leg going, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. So congratulations on that. I really
you.
enjoyed hearing from you and your journey. I've seen your name and seen you as speaker where Robin has spoken. So we just honestly appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And I'm glad it worked out where you could be right there in your tiny home, sitting on your hammock.
you.
Very
Yeah,
comfortable.
chilling.
So,
Thank you.
I also heard Robin mention our grand finale. It is February 17th and 18th, and we'll be having speakers throughout the day. We're deciding on the actual time frame, whether it'll be probably be midday on both days. So just to let everybody know about that. And tomorrow night we have Scott Banta and Robin. They're a team sharing with us about our tiny house development education on how to develop a community. Everything I put in my post, everything from land to loans to everything you could think of. It has honestly been quite an education. So tune in if you want to tomorrow night. And with that, I think that's it. We can go. I see one comment and it was a thank you from Catherine. So again, thank you. And I hope everybody has a great night. If there's nothing else, we'll catch you on the flip side tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Have a super good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie.